Hello everyone and welcome to the Arbor Farm. Thank you for joining us for today's episode where I want to share with you how to grow snapdragons from seed. Let's get started. March is the perfect time to start your snapdragons. Now, with that being said, they can also be grown in the fall and grown overwintered as a hardy annual in some zones. But here in Zone 6 in southern Michigan, we like to start them in the early spring, and they enjoy the cool temperatures of the early spring, which help to really get their growth going. So let's take a look next of all at the 4 types of snapdragons that you might enjoy growing. Snapdragons can be grown as cut flowers, which is what we do. Our preference is to use them in our bouquets as cut flowers, and even as a few for dried flowers. The variety that we grow are the rocket snapdragons because those are the tall ones. They grow about 3 feet tall and they have a good vase life. Now, there are other kinds of snapdragons that you can grow from seed as well. You can grow the dwarf varieties, which those are really compact and good for container gardens or pots, as well as tight or small landscapes. And then there are the really ruffly varieties like the madam butterfly and things like that. Again, those are a little bit taller than the dwarf varieties, but again, not our preference for cut flowers. And then the 4th variety is just a tall snapdragon. Those get about 2 to 3 feet tall. They're also good for cut flowers and bedding, landscapes, and beautiful flowers to be enjoyed as annuals. So let's take a look at how to get our seeds started for snapdragons. When we first started planting flowers, we thought that the same as many people do, you might be able to just, open the packet of seeds, spread them out in the ground, put a little dirt over them, and voila, they grow. And for snapdragons, that's just not the case. So snapdragons need a little more love and care to get them going. We start all of our snapdragons indoors, and again, March is the perfect time to do that here in Zone 6, but the recommended time to start them is 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. So your estimated last frost date, for us, it's May 1st, but if you count back the number of weeks, 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date, and give those a good start inside, that is the perfect time to start them. So if you're in Zone 7, 8, 9, yours would be earlier than March 1st to get those started. And you can go ahead and do the math to figure that out, but 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost is the perfect time to start. Another thing about snapdragon seeds that you'll want to know is that they prefer to be transplanted out. So don't direct seed them into the ground, like I just mentioned, and go ahead and start them inside and give them that love and care that they need, and then transplant them out. Now, if you open the package of snapdragon seeds, you might be overwhelmed and immediately feel defeated, but that is not the reality. Snapdragon seeds are totally doable if you follow our instructions. So here we go. Let's get started planting our seeds. All right, there's a couple ways that you can do this, and when you see the seeds, you'll understand my thought process here. These seeds are so small, they're like the size of a grain of sand, okay? So if you're someone who needs bifocals, go ahead and get your bifocals out. But we like to use a white plate, and it makes the seeds easier to see. But here are those teeny tiny seeds. A couple ways to do this. We use soil blocks so that it makes transplanting our plants easier without root disturbance. So I can take a single block and transplant that into the ground without disturbing the roots of my plants. But you could also use just a tray of potting soil and sprinkle your seeds on top of the potting soil to get them started. Or winter sowing is a good way to start snapdragons. I'll put a link in the description below to our winter sowing video so that you can see how to do that if you want to give that a try. But here's how we start all of our snapdragons. We pour them out on a plate and then get our soil blocks. And I'm going to move my camera over here so that you can see my soil blocks and how I go about planting them. I'm also going to put a link in the description below of how I make my soil blocks if you're interested in making soil blocks to start your seeds to ease the transplanting them out process. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of these seeds here on my plate. And I like to use a toothpick. I just moisten that toothpick and then I can pick up a seed and I can put it directly on my soil block. So when I'm putting these very difficult to see seeds on my soil block, I use my finger to keep track of where I am, and I use the same pattern every time. So I put my finger here so that I remember I'm on the first row, and then I pick up another seed with my moistened toothpick, and I put it on the center of the next soil block, and so on, until I've worked through all 160 blocks in this tray and have them all planted. Now that we have our snapdragon seeds all planted in our soil box, the next thing we like to do is to label them and date them and just add that to the container so that we can have reference as to when they were planted. So now that they're planted, I like to grab a lid for my container to create somewhat of a greenhouse effect to keep it nice and moist inside this container until at least 50% of the seed is germinated. Then I take the lid off. So I'm going to go ahead and add my lid. Just as an added layer of keeping it sealed, I have some plastic wrap, food storage wrap in there to keep it nice and tight. So this goes under. We have grow lights, which in essence are really just shop lights that are 5,000 lumens. These go under the light and on a heat mat if you have one. They will also germinate without a heat mat if you have them inside in a relatively warm location. So let's go ahead and put those under there and helps them germinate. Okay, here they are going under the grow light on the heat mat, and this can take anywhere from a week to 10 days for them to germinate. But you just keep an eye, and when about 50% of them have germinated, you remove them from the lid, remove the lid, and remove them from the heat mat. I wanted to show you this. This is a recent Snapdragon tray that we seeded, and let's see. Well, it's been about 2 weeks now since we seeded this one. So this one did something funny. In the middle, these are slower to germinate, but the edges have germinated faster. Not sure of the reasoning why that is, but you can see the little tiny seedlings here, And so as soon as they poke above the ground, you want to remove the lid so that they don't rot, the plants don't rot, and then remove them from the heat mat as well, but just keep them under the light to grow them on. And eventually they will get bigger and bigger, and you can transplant them outside when they have about 3 leaves that are true leaves. And wanted to show you this tray. This is a tray of snapdragons that are further along, and you can see that they have true leaves now, and these would be close to be ready to go outside. Now, we are not done with frost yet here in Zone 6, so I would need to put them under a frost cover if I was going to plant them out now to keep them protected, because a hard freeze or a hard frost would do them in. So you want to be careful about that. Wait until after the frost has passed. I also wanted to show you, look at these guys here. This is something interesting. That's what they look like as soon as they germinate. So it looks like just a stick that poked out of the dirt, and there's no leaves. It looks like, oh dear, what's wrong with my seedling? But eventually that little seed head will pop off the top and leaves will come. So this is somewhat of an odd pan too, because we have some that are farther along and then some that are straggling behind. And we don't want to plant them out until they have at least 3 sets of true leaves. And so like these larger ones here, these could go outside as soon as we are ready. If you're growing snapdragons and you want to grow them for production, in other words, you want a large quantity of stems, the other thing you're going to want to do is trim them or pinch them. We generally wait until after we've transplanted them outside and they get, maybe 6 or 8 inches tall. And then we pinch the tops. And then what that does, instead of having one stem or one flower head per plant, it makes them so that they branch out and you get 6, maybe even it's sometimes 8 stems per plant. And so that can increase your production. So if you're growing snapdragons, make sure that you pinch them at the right time, and you can get several more flower heads to enjoy. Just as a point of reference, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but snapdragons are gorgeous flowers that can be used as filler or even as focal flowers. And they add that nice pointy aspect to any bouquet or to a landscape. Snapdragons are a lot of fun to grow, so we hope that you enjoy growing snapdragons as hardy annuals, ones that enjoy the cool weather. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Our goal is to always create content that's helpful for you. So if you found today's content helpful, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications as to when the next content is available. And as always, if you have questions or comments, please drop those below. We would be happy to engage with you, and we read every single one. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.